There's been a lot of hype lately about studying longer hours. 4 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours. I'm pretty sure if YouTube didn't cap videos at 12 hours, some psychopath student would have made a 24-hour study with me video by now. Not gonna lie, we hopped on the bandwagon with a 12-hour study marathon of our own. I was in a dedicated study block for the USMLE, one of the med school raid bosses, where studying that long is necessary and actually pretty typical if you ask most US med students. But it's not because I look forward to studying 12 hours a day. I don't enjoy it like I do a 12-hour anime binge or a music festival or something. And that got me thinking a lot about my life. I spent my entire childhood and most of my adulthood studying. So with this video, I just want to casually chat and share my thoughts on some of the toxic aspects of study culture and why in the end, it doesn't really matter. So let's talk about why students want to study as long as possible. And keep in mind, I'm speaking in broad terms, so not everything I say is going to apply to everyone, so chill. But in general, I think there are two big reasons why students study so much. First is the pressure to perform. So quick story here. Back in college, there was a semester where I used to walk through the library every morning to get to class at 8 a.m. Trust me, if I could have skipped this class, I totally would have, but there was mandatory attendance, so I had to be there. Anyway, every morning, I saw this one student sitting in the exact same spot with his textbooks, laptop, and headphones, grinding at 7:45 a.m. And when I went home, around 3 to 5 p.m., depending on which day of the week, I'd walk back through the library. And guess what? He would still be there in the exact same spot, maybe with a cup of coffee, without fail. Reliable as the sun coming up and setting. He was there. So finally, I gave in. All right, I'm curious. So I approached him and asked, "Why do you work so hard?" And he told me a story that hit really close to home. It was so relatable. He said he wanted to go to grad school, maybe med school, dental school, or law school, but he felt like he wasn't very smart. So in order to make up for it, he put in more work. He was also a first-gen Asian American, like myself, but unlike me, he was the first person in his family to go to college. And he'd pulled out student loans, and his parents were paying for his housing, and he'd moved all the way from across the country. The gist of his story was that he felt he'd been given this golden opportunity to go to college, and if he didn't work as hard as possible, it would all be a waste. And that put things into perspective about the multiple angles of pressure that students face. There's this looming circumstantial pressure of, oh, I took out loans, or my parents are paying top dollar for me to be here, so better not screw it up, right? Then add on peer pressure, and that's when things really start to get to our heads. Geez, Jimmy's studying 10 hours a day. Should I be studying 10 hours a day? Oh shoot, why am I not studying right now? Who's Ken Jeong?
What am I doing with my life?
And to top it all off, there's personal pressure, usually in the form of insecurity. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I don't deserve to be here because I can't understand everything on a first pass. So to compensate with all this doubt, studying longer hours rationally makes sense to us. We're overwhelmed by pressure, so by allowing 10 hours a day to study, we feel better because it seems like it's something that we have control over. Now, the other reason that students give themselves 10 or 12 hours a day to study, and keep in mind that both of these two reasons can be true, they're not mutually exclusive, but it's because studying that long is easier. It's more manageable to get through all our studies if we give ourselves more time. But to be honest, this is a terrible reason to add study time, and I'll explain why. One of the biggest problems with school is that we're never told how to study effectively. We're never taught what works and what doesn't work. In all of my college classes, I was just handed a syllabus, a list of textbooks, some PowerPoints, a final exam date, and told, "Okay, little birdie, go fly, winter's coming." And this has led to the very unfortunate development of poor study habits in students. Now, I might get a little bit of pushback on this, but I think the entire studygram movement is fueling this inefficient study culture. Just scrolling through Instagram, I can see students posting pictures of these beautiful aesthetic study guides that I know for a fact took them hours to create. Some people buy a 25 pack of highlighters, pack their bags, camp out in the library for 10 hours, and make these study guides. Complete inefficiency. The problem is that when studying becomes the center of our day, we start to let go of the other aspects of our life that counterintuitively actually lead to more effective learning. Things like sleep, diet, exercise, socializing. I'm not gonna go into much detail about these here since we've already made videos about them, but there are a lot of moving parts that go into establishing a system, not just for studying, but for a balanced, healthy life. But let's just say you are a seasoned student. You're using the most effective study strategies: active recall, spaced repetition, interleaving. You're getting regular exercise, you're eating healthy, you're not staying up till 2 a.m. watching YouTube videos and TikToks. You're subscribed to Mike and Matty and you're obliterating RemNote flashcards. Well, if you're still giving yourself 10 or 12 hours a day to study, you still might not be in the clear. There's this adage called Parkinson's Law, which states that work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. So if you give yourself 10 hours to write a paper or study, you're more likely to use the entire 10 hours, even if objectively it shouldn't have taken you that long to do so. Basically, by allowing 10, 12 hours to study, we're giving ourselves leeway and inviting distractions because, hey, this is the only thing we have to do today. All right, so aside from why students try to study so much, the more important question and the reason I made this video is looking at the end game. Do I think it's worth it to study 10 hours a day, every day in school? The short answer, as I'm about to start my 4th year of medical school after taking exam after exam, finishing step 1 and step 2, is no. Here's the deal. In the grand scheme of things, when it comes to grades, exams, and school, good enough is all you need. Good enough. Good enough means that you've identified a benchmark, a goal, and that anything beyond that goal is unnecessary. So what does that look like? Well, let me use an example from medical school. If I wanted to match into internal medicine for residency, what step score would be good enough? Let me check real quick actually to make sure I have my facts right. All right, so the average step 1 score for those who matched into internal medicine was 235. So 235 is my benchmark. However, if my goal is dermatology, where the average step 1 score is a 248, then sure, I might push my exam back a little bit, figure out what I'm doing wrong with my studying, and really put in more hours to reach my benchmark. I'm sure some of you are like, WTF, Matty, are you saying don't shoot for the stars, don't try to set the curve on every test? Yes, I don't think it's a useful way to spend your time. Because let me break it down, and this is really important. No one cares if you aced your calculus final in college. Once you get into medical school, no one cares what your MCAT score was. Once I start residency, no one cares what my step scores are. I could have scored the 99th percentile, or I could have just scored good enough. Who cares? My point here is that hard work isn't the enemy. It's perfectionism. I think a lot of students confuse high effort with meaningful effort. I can wake up and study my ass off, day in and day out, to hundo my college final. But unless getting a hundo on that college final is gonna change the outcome of what I want in life, it's meaningless. It's like trying to train your Diglett once it's level 100. Farming doesn't change the outcome. All you're doing is spending energy and spending time for nothing. All that time instead, we can invest in living life. What I've come to realize is that time is our most valuable asset. I was just kicking it with one of my good friends who I hadn't seen in a while, and we both just finished our exams and all the difficult rotations of 4th year. So really the last big hurdle of medical school is applying for residency. So for the past couple of weeks, we've had an unusual period of free afternoons and weekends. And so I was asking him, what have you been up to? What have you been doing? And he paused before saying, you know, it feels like we've been running and training nonstop for 10 years. And now as we're about to cross the finish line of the marathon, I don't really know what my life is outside of school. He didn't really know what to do with his time. He didn't have a girlfriend, he didn't have a lot of hobbies. Drinking doesn't count as a hobby, by the way. And coming on 30 years old, after sacrificing all that time, I think it was starting to hit him, us, that time flies and we don't get it back. And you know, during the healthiest, the sexiest decade of our lives, our 20s, it sucks to, you know, be at the end of it and look back and realize that you forgot to live. So anyway, take away what you will from this video. Put in meaningful work, set goals, chase your purpose, but don't forget that life is happening now and not just at the end of the marathon. Let me know what you think about this topic. Did I get it completely wrong or did I hit the nail right on the spot? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and definitely check out all the rest of our study content right here. See y'all next time.